All right. Hello, everybody. Again, this is Thurl. Welcome to our podcast, Two Sides of the Same Coin. I'm here with who else but my co-host, my
Other half.
other half, lesser half, better half, however you want to say, the other side of the coin.
This is
Roy.
this is Roy.
Oh, that's who
Peace.
he is. That's Roy.
That's me.
And we also have here our other compadre. I like your outfit. It's kind of fly.
It's
Yeah,
kind of different.
stripes.
It's the
It's
stripes.
all
What's up with
stripes
that?
with the arm.
Look at you. Oh, look at you with the cat glasses on.
Look, got some little shoulder expression.
she's and you know what, y'all? She
Do a little
was
shoulder.
she was fashionably
I
late
was
today.
late in bed.
Had us
Yeah,
held up the show for like an hour.
That's not true.
Yeah,
I was
okay.
in bed. I did not know we was having one.
Okay, but this is the one and only Luana.
Hello.
Okay, and Roy, special guest today, a special guest on a special topic. We're going to jump into. She's had quite a bit of experience with the topic we're going to be talking about. We're excited to have her. She's coming to us all the way from New Jersey.
New Jersey. East
She's on
Coast.
East Coast.
On the east.
East Coast, everybody. Who do we have today, Roy?
We have Joi Rychelle. Joi Rychelle is an embodiment queen, and she calls herself an embodiment queen. She's a coach. She coaches men in how to release daily stressors, and how to embody self-care, how to bring out their sensuality, and a number of other things. So we're excited to have her on, and let's all welcome Joi with us.
Thank you
All
so
right.
much. I'm so honored to be here with you all. You all
Yes.
seem like a fun bunch. I would love to have been there with you in person.
Yes, we would have loved to have you. We'll have to
fly
get
out
you
next
here.
time.
That
Or we'll
would
have to go
definitely be
there.
good.
You know, we haven't been to New Jersey. We've been to New York, but never to New Jersey. So we may
Oh,
have to come
yeah.
there.
New Jersey.
I'm right. I'm
You
close to
did?
New York.
I did.
so-
I lived in New Jersey.
Oh,
Joy,
did you?
Luana said she used to live in New Jersey.
Oh.
Salem,
In
New
Jersey.
Jersey. By Delaware.
Oh, okay. You're further out than me. I'm in Jersey City, so I'm really
Mhm.
close to New York.
Yeah, I
like a
went.
hop, skip, and a jump, literally.
Right. You're okay. Yeah. I lived there with my aunt for like a year.
Nice.
Okay. So, Joi, you're a coach. And from what I understand, primarily men, if not only men. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. Now, as a coach, what aspects of coaching do you do when you say coach? And not fitness coach, soccer, football, kickball, whatever. What is it that you do as a coach for men?
I really focus on the transformation of getting them to just a more fulfilled, happier place, just like in broad terms, and feeling a bit more just whole within themselves, so that they can have a more fulfilling. They usually have a fulfilling career, but a more fulfilling relationships. Just to feel really great in their body, not just physically, but energetically. I have a yogic background, so the modalities
Oh.
I'm using a few different modalities to work with them, and I'm pivoting more into taking on more virtual clients. So it will be
Mhm.
more virtual stuff and a lot more mindset, subconscious, I guess, embodiment practices to really help forward the transformation and bring up the root causes of things.
Mhm.
I have such a big heart in my mission and my purpose to be a stand for men to take care of themselves, especially internally, because that's sometimes where the disconnect is, where we have all these programming. I'm learning that from my clients and through the research I've done, and just from my own experiences with men and the masculine energy, starting with my father, that men have take on a lot, and they have so much thrown at them from when they're a baby or a little boy about what masculinity is, what it means to be a boy in this world growing up into a man. And one of my favorite books, The King, the Warrior, the Magician, and the Lover, Rediscovering the Mature Masculine. In that book, Robert Moore and Douglas Gillette talk about how a lot of men who are in jail or decide to join the military struggle with being a man because they had no one to fully initiate them into manhood. You know, if you look at like African tribes or indigenous tribes, there's usually like a ceremony, a sacred ceremony around a boy or a teenager crossing over into manhood. And I feel like the men here are missing that. The generation,
So,
we've missed that.
so the opposite of masculinity is man being
Femininity.
is being emasculated. So, do you feel, as far as what's going on with men in today's world, that they're being more and more emasculated based on circumstances, and so you feel you need to try and help rectify that and help them retrieve their masculinity?
Well, it's a two-parter. That's a great question. I am moving more into now in my content talking about that because I feel that there is a specific collective agenda that might not necessarily come from a man's personal community, but just as a collective messaging or agenda to try to dampen, or I should say, to almost suffocate the masculine energy. So I do agree with that. I feel like there's an agenda being pushed out there from news, from entertainment, to tell men to be more passive. And there's also things that are put out there to weaken a man's masculinity. Like if we look at, porn addiction, alcohol, any type of vices, it can be anything. When you are weakened in your masculine strength, you can then be more controlled. And so the agenda that's being pushed out there, you can be controlled. If you're addicted to porn, right, you're being almost controlled by your desires, by your
But
urges.
is that being addicted to porn? You're saying that's emasculating, or what are you?
I am saying
implying?
that because you're doing it out of almost like a need, instead of there's something in the root that's deeper. Maybe that person didn't get the love they needed from their father or their mother figure when they were younger. I actually, not to put him completely out there, but I actually had someone in my life personally that I was intimate with that was discovering things that were coming up around his parents, and he looked at porn a lot. I mean, he was a very busy man, but more than what I thought was healthy. I don't think it's healthy at all, because if we look at porn, it takes out the emotional connection between two humans.
And I think that's what the issue is.
Yes.
When it comes to porn, is the man's, he feels doesn't need to connect with a woman. He's looking at a video or TV or phone screen, and so he feels he can get some sort of an arousal without the necessity of connecting with a woman in a way that makes a relationship healthy and whole. So yeah, I agree with you on that.
I don't agree.
Oh, you disagree?
I totally disagree. Well, I won't say I totally disagree, but I would say that I don't think there's nothing wrong with looking at porn. I don't think that it takes away from a man in masculinity if he watches porn. What if he watches porn with his significant other? It doesn't mean that he's more into the porn than he is with his mate. Maybe they're both enjoying it at the same time together.
Do you think most men watch porn with their woman?
I did with my husband.
Okay.
And I had no problem with it. But I think if I came home and I caught him watching porn every day without, and if he wanted to watch it all the time, then I would think that maybe there is something going on there. But I think porn is healthy. I mean, like, women watch porn. So can you please elaborate on that when you say you think that's taken away from their masculinity when they watch porn? Because I'm a woman and I watch porn sometimes.
I'm specifically talking about being addicted to it.
Okay.
Like you're needing it where it's controlling you. I mean, at the end of the day,
right.
I'm never going to judge anybody on that.
Right.
And what creates a sensual connection and desire within their own relationship, within their self. But I think there's other healthier ways to do it, because if we look at porn as a whole, it can be soft porn, hard porn. I've watched porn actually too with a past partner, and I was like, this was before I was even feeling like spiritually connected, I think, within myself. But I was like, I feel nothing. This is doing nothing for me. It feels very disconnected almost. And the union, if we're looking at sex and sensuality, and so I feel that if you feel like you have to have it, almost just like smoking cigarettes,
right?
Usually people are smoking it to release something, and it's coming from the root cause of something. If yes, the surface level could be like, it could give you a release of stress and anxiety in that moment. But if we look at cigarettes, there's rat poisoning and other ingredients in there, so that are not healthy for your body, and it's expensive.
Right.
So it's
You're
almost
right.
the same thing. Like I
Okay.
said, everybody to each his own. I would never look down on anybody for that. I know somebody that's personally reached out to me, and he told me that his craving for this, he noticed, was when he went out in the real world, he had a problem connecting with women on an emotional level.
Yeah,
And it was
Oh,
bothering him
That happens.
deeply.
That can happen.
So,
because porn can objectify women in such a way. I want to rewind a little bit with you, Joy, because I know we've jumped into this topic.
yeah.
But talk to us a little bit about what your practice is, why men, what led you to this particular practice first. And the second question to that is, how do people reach out to you, find you? Do they call you, email you, and say, hey, I would like to get in a therapy session with you? But let's go back and talk about why this particular practice.
It's funny you say that, because long story short, I feel like this part of my purpose actually found me when it comes to particularly focusing on men. From my professional history of just working in wellness in general. So for instance, in 2019, I was like a stretch trainer at this like stretch studio, and it was a startup. And I heard those types of studios were really big on the West Coast, but they were starting to make a really an opening here on the East Coast, especially in New York. There were like a few cropping up there, here and there. So the CEO that hired me, him and his wife started this company because they used to live on the West Coast. And I started off there as a yoga instructor. Long story short, I got trained to be a stretch trainer there, where you actually like physically like stretch people out, extend their bodies in all these different shapes and forms. And I noticed, and then I started helping them build out their home business, where a stretch trainer could come to your home and stretch you, as opposed to like you coming to the studio. Long story short, I ended up being one of the top trainers there as far as like customer retention, client retention. And then 2020 came, and like that shut down everything. So when I was building my own, at this point, yoga practice, private practice, like building it up again, because it had kind of like fell by the wayside because I was working on this. Looking back, I hired my first business coach in 2020 to really help me build my business, because obviously there were things I was missing. And she used to be a yoga instructor, so she had basically everything I wanted in a business coach. Long story short, when we were talking about niching, she was kind of like, I understand you're a yoga instructor. I understand usually you become a yoga instructor because you want to help the world, right? You just want to give this practice to everybody because you know how healing, I don't even like to say the word healing, but you know what the transformation it can create, because you've taken it on as your practice, and maybe you've seen that transformation in your clients. But it may be good to niche down, because her thing was like, if you want to help everybody, sometimes you can't help anybody, because you're being pulled several different ways and you have no focus business wise, right? As far as like your client avatar and like focusing on a particular type of client. So we kind of went into the conversation around men, and I was telling her in my past, as far as my own yoga business, my repeat clients were men. The ones that are like always repeat or buy packages were men, out comparing the numbers between men and women who were working with me privately. And the same thing happened when I was a stretch trainer. My highest retention were men in the studios, and like the people I was serving at home, because they were having the most problems in their bodies. They did not know how to breathe properly. They were highly stressed, very tense, or they might be injured. They, didn't do any recovery practices. So it was a lot going on there that I was like ending up unpacking with these people when I would get into a session with them. And one thing, so that was one reason of why I decided to niche down to men, because I was like, well, they're already choosing me. There must be something within me with the masculine energy that I get to share with these men to help them, really help them on a visceral level. And then also the story with my father, with my own personal relationship with him and how it was just like treacherous. I didn't talk to my dad for like over 20 years, you know, before 2013 came when I did this personal development program. And realizing, putting all those things together, I was like, well, I know how it feels as a daughter on the receiving end to be affected by the masculine energy and by a man who's in my life who doesn't work on himself, who doesn't want to do anything internally, physically to work on himself. And, you know, me and my dad have come so far, and I accept him for the way he is. And I also feel like he is what drives me to be a stand for men with their health and well-being and being whole and complete, because he is very stubborn.
Mhm.
And
Has he embraced what you do?
he's intrigued by it. You know, he asks questions. He's intrigued by it. Our relationship is still kind of strained, you know, because we're getting to know each other as the man he is right now and me as an adult. So it's very weird, you know. And I had to let go of the expectations of what it was going to be when I reconnected with him, and then try to like forge this relationship. I thought it was going to be like the movies, you know, like it doesn't work like that, right?
You have a lot of success stories, like with the men that you do.
I do. I have a lot of different success stories. I think one of my, oh my God, I feel like I'm about to start crying. One person I recently worked with, and we just ended our contract together, and probably about 2 weeks ago, is a man who came to me. He actually knew me through other people that I used to work with when I worked in the hospitality industry. He had been following my content for a while. But make a long story short, he had a lot of issues, from pelvic floor things to acid reflux stuff. And it was wearing on his confidence.
So this was these were physical ailments.
These are physical ailments, but it was also affecting him energetically and emotionally, because it was chipping at his confidence of him wanting to put himself out there to date again, of him being able to function the way he used to in life, because now all these issues are coming up, you know, that are creating like physical pain in his body. And he really wanted to dive in deeper on what he could do naturally to help him transform this. And I was up against so much with him, because I never had a client come to me with these type of issues. And he was young. He's young, you know, he's since 30s. Right. So we grew together in our time together, because I had to do more research on, you know, I never really, there's no one really talking about men and pelvic floor issues, and how important it actually is for men to have a pelvic floor, because there's 5 muscles in the pelvic floor. But your lingam, which is the Sanskrit word, the sacred word for your genitals, your lingam, part of your lingam is in your pelvic floor. And if you don't have a strong pelvic floor, it can affect how healthy your erection is. What I love about working with men in general, I usually have a conversation with them, like a breakthrough call before we even start to work together. And what I love about the men that I have worked with is that they start off like this, like a closed fist, and they literally start to open up as we start to work together. And I hold that trust that they have within me so sacred, because I know how hard it is for a man to actually come to a woman and admit all of these issues they're having.
So Joi, I know I've listened to a number of your talks on your page, and so your primary goal, or men coming to you, are looking in some way or another to connect with women through your coaching, to be more capable of attracting women to themselves and understanding women better, so that the woman will relate to them better. Is that pretty much what your coaching is with these men that come to you?
I am. I'm pivoting into that conversation now. Thank you for bringing that up. So I'm starting to pivot into more talking about masculine and feminine energy just in general, and how we can harmonize those energies within ourselves, because we all have them, and get it right within ourselves first, so that then we can be attractive and also create that type of polarity in our relationships, especially romantic relationships, because our romantic relationships also bring up so much for us, so much of our childhood trauma, so much of our inner child wounds. You know, we usually, even if we're doing it subconsciously, which we know the subconscious mind, the subconscious brain is always running the show, from our choices to habits. So when usually when we're choosing a romantic partner, we're trying to, I shouldn't say get, but sometimes we are trying to get something, but we are usually choosing them based on the things our parents didn't give us when we were children. And that can definitely affect how a man is showing up in his life and is showing up in his romantic relationships or the dating world or his marriage. I've actually seen that, because I had a client I worked for from 2020 to like the middle of this year. And I was specifically working with him first, and I started working with his wife separately and together. They would have different sessions. They would have like a yoga session together, you know, semi-private, not just with him, sometimes with him and a few of his employees. And they would work, I would work with them separately, privately. Long story short, what I'm saying is, when I first took them on as a client, I noticed the polarity was off within their relationship. Now, at this time, I wasn't putting out any content talking about masculine and feminine and polarity and strongly as I'm talking about it now, and how it can affect your masculine energy. But just working with them together and separate, it's funny, I saw the polarity in their relationship change. Meaning, for example, when I first met them, his wife was kind of like always in her masculine a little bit. Sometimes in class, she would say little things, and in front of me, in front of other people, that I know kind of like would be like make him deflate, you know. And I would just observe. I wouldn't say anything, because it wasn't my place. They didn't hire me for that, right? So I want to be respectful of them. And he was kind of in his feminine with her. And I noticed their polarity as they were doing their own work within themselves with me. I noticed their polarity started to change a bit. And it was such a beautiful, it's been so beautiful to see how, with them transforming themselves, how it transformed the energetics in the relationship dynamics in their marriage. Now, obviously it's not perfect. They've been married for a very long time as well. So it's just interesting to see how, when I harmonize my own masculine and feminine energy and then really show up for my clients with that energy, how it can just like transform them. And so I realized, just with working with clients in person, how important it is for this to have this conversation in my content, because we might not think about it, like, you know, us being more energetic beings beyond the body.
Gotcha. So from when you're coaching men, are you approaching it as far as helping them from a woman's perspective, in terms of telling them what you feel women are looking for and what you see in them that they're lacking, that women may be turned off from them because they're lacking certain elements or certain characteristics or certain ways of thinking and approaching things? What is it that are you looking at it from a woman's perspective when you approach these men in terms of giving them guidance on how they can get in touch with their sensuality and all those things that they need?
Yes and no. I will say I do talk about that more in my content, just because I'm talking to people who don't know me. So sometimes the content has to be more direct. You know, one of my mentors, he always like says, give the client or your audience what they want, and then when they become your client, really give them what they need.
Nice.
So on the surface level, you know, yes, I will talk about that from a woman's point of view, you know, because sometimes they'll open up their ears, like they'll spark and they'll get their attention, right? Especially since I'm coming as a voice and as a coach and trying to cut through all the noise in their feed, right? That they're already being exposed to get them to even stop on this video and look. So I do always talk about it from that point. But it depends when they become a client with me one-on-one. It depends. I'm really seeking to give them what they want in that moment and meeting them where they are. So it may not always be like, well, from my perspective or from a woman's perspective, ... It could be more just from a coach lens and asking them deeper questions so I can try to get to the root cause of what is creating a disconnect. Like, for example, you know, I was on a call with a man and he was having a disconnect with someone he was wanting to pursue. And as I kept asking him questions, I knew it instantly because I was like, I've gone through this myself. He had a big like self-worthiness piece that was helping to create that disconnect, and the root cause of it was coming from his parents. He didn't realize that. And so I kept asking him questions so that we could dig deeper, and then, you know, gave him a bit of feedback on that, because he said something about his parents and how they have such a high expectation for him, and he never feels like he can reach that bar with them.
Because I think I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'll just say this real quick, because, and I'll let you chime in, Luana. But I think the number one issue with men being able to draw women to them, I think, has to do with confidence. And I think maybe through childhood or through other things that affect them, that it affects their confidence overall and how they approach women. Do you see that a lot? Because it looks like to me, a lot of the men are coming to you to figure out a way to gain confidence so that they can approach women and, you know, in a way that they feel the woman will be desirous of them. You know, it sort of reminds me of, what's the movie Hitch? Remember a little bit? I think about it, trying to get him some Will Smith trying to get him confidence. Does it seem to be that way with you when men come to you, they're looking for some way to find a way to instill self-confidence in themselves? Because that's the number one barometer that it takes to attract women, I believe.
I do. I feel like that's always, you know, I've talked about that in my content a lot, right? That's just an attractive trait just for anybody to have, right? You could definitely like work a room being like the most confident person in a room, right? It's so attractive.
Confident. That's a turn off too.
Exactly.
Too overconfident, the arrogance and stuff is a turn off too. You know, it sounds like you deal with a lot of men that have a lot of trauma. Like a lot of trauma. Like we all do. We all do. Do you see that the men that you are coaching or helping come in with trauma, and the women that they're trying to attract? Because I feel like if it's two trauma bond people can't help each other. Right. They're not able to save each other. They can't fix each other. Right. Therefore, if they come together in a relationship, I think it creates more turmoil. I feel like you need to work on yourself, like what you're doing with them.
Yes.
The woman need to do the same thing. I feel like, because when two broken people come together in a relationship, it's not going to be whole. You got two broken parts. You can't make it whole. You just can't.
I agree with you. I'm a stand for healthy relationships, and I feel that now I'm starting to attract those type of men, even if they don't know they're coming to me for that. Right? Because men are not waking up like, my inner child is wounded and I need to, you know, they're just not thinking about it in that way.
Yeah, a lot of men don't like to admit that they have issues either.
Right.
So I'm finding it very interesting that you're getting these clients. I like that.
Well, you know what? I think that's when I come back to my own energetics. I think my clients have appreciated that I hold them with a feminine presence, but I'm still going to hold them accountable with my masculinity, with my own masculine strength.
Okay.
Like you're not going to avoid this work. I'm going to hold you accountable to be a stand for you to show up for this session we're about to have. So I'm very professional with that, you know, in those ways, and they appreciate that. But when we get into a session together, it's like a dance, you know. I definitely have a deep place in my heart for these men to work on themselves so that they can feel different, so that they can come out of the session or whatever, or come out of an experience with me feeling happier, more fulfilled, so that they can like be attractive. It starts within them.
Do you come
So-
across? Oh, sorry. Do you come across clients that you can't work with that have sort of like toxic masculinity issues?
I
Do
haven't
you come across those kind of
I
clients?
haven't. I actually have not come up against that yet. I've come up against more that they're just afraid and they're not ready to take the leap, or they have worked with somebody else in the past. It might not even be like a coach around like health and well-being. It might be like just like somebody else that they hired professionally that burned them, and so they're hesitant to pay the money because they're coming to me from their own past experience already, thinking that I may do the same to them. So that's why I say before I even take on somebody as a client, I make sure we have that conversation. They schedule a conversation with me first, because first and foremost, my thing is I always want you to feel safe with me. I always want you to trust me. And I never want you to put down your money and then instantly like go in the back of your mind, regret it, you know? And so I want them to feel my energy as much as I want to feel their energy, because I will turn down somebody if I don't think it's a good fit, and not necessarily because I don't think I can help them, just because I don't think
it's a good fit.
it's just not a good fit, right? And I have referred people to other people, you know, like when I was coming up against just things, when I was just like marketing myself as just like a yoga instructor, you know, I just, you know, refer them, be like, I think this is a better fit for you, or we're not in the same area, you know, it's going to be a mess for me to travel there, but I have somebody in your area. And I love gifting clients to other people, or gifting leads to other people, because the world is full of opportunities. So I never look at that as a loss when somebody doesn't hire me. And at least I know if we had that first conversation, maybe I was the one that was supposed to plant the seed in that man's mind and heart for when he's ready to really step in and face his shit, excuse my language, then he'll be a little bit more open to do it. Or he might come back to me. Like the client I just talked about that held the pelvic floor stuff, he reached out to me a year and a half earlier and thought he was ready, but he didn't fully jump in. You know, sometimes people have to be in more pain, unfortunately.
Women.
Yes.
And obviously these men are coming to you, some of them. There's career motivations, there's relationship motivation, but how much of it has to do with the fact that we're living in a different society than we lived in probably 20 years ago, 10 years ago, for that matter, probably almost 5 years ago. Social media, dating sites, the latest app that has people swiping a certain kind of a way. Men are looking for validations. They're trying to be approved on some level. They're looking for confidence. But then there are also, that's kind of dictated by what women's choices are now and how women's approach to dating is, and how they're selecting mates or not selecting mates or presenting themselves. So you have a lot involved with when it comes to figuring out how you want to approach this gentleman. He's looking for a relationship. How do you factor in the fact that women and their behavior is different than what it was 10 years ago, 15 years ago,
And
even
maybe
5 years ago?
maybe
mean
affecting how
behavior?
men respond to certain situations.
What do y'all mean behavior?
Well, what I mean by that is
When you say women behavior,
the women's behavior.
women picking and choosing.
There's
now.
a confidence
No,
level.
yeah.
Listen, let's go back to that.
Yeah, let's get it.
There's
Let's
a
go
confidence level that women
love this.
present
Mhm.
to publicly
Okay.
that they may not have done 15, 10 years ago in
No,
terms of how they are. No, I'm talking
women
about
are more independent now. Women are making more money now.
that's what that all
Women-
comes down to what?
Mhm.
Confident level.
Yeah.
Confidence, right?
Yes, it does.
So and they're able
and
to
they're
pick,
very
choose, and refuse, but they're
choosy.
presenting themselves and they're very choosy. Yes. But
Mhm.
that also has an opposite side of that of how men's approach. Often men felt like he would meet a young lady, he would be in a position to do whatever he wanted to do with providing as a provider. He would marry her or pursue her.
Well, it was perceived at one point a traditional role
Yeah, a
within the
traditional role.
relationship, but that dynamic has changed.
That's
quite a bit.
changed completely. It's been almost overhauled. So a lot of these men are coming in drudgingly, walking in, meeting with Joy about, listen, I've been browbeaten by what's out here today with the way a lot of women are.
What
and how
women's
they move,
expectations are
and what
today.
their expectations are. A lot of it has to do with financial success and things like that. A lot of relationships are different. Built
Well,
around different
the
things.
thing I look at it is this. I mean, do we have a problem with what is called situational love? Well, you love a person based on the
Conditional.
situation.
Based on the
Based on
condition,
the
yeah.
condition.
Based
I
on the
make more
conditions that
money
they
than you,
meet.
so I love you less.
Yeah.
I don't think
Or-
that should be.
No, it shouldn't be,
it
right?
shouldn't be that.
But do
Shouldn't
you
be.
think a lot of women are more emboldened because they are bigger breadwinners in certain circumstances
I don't.
where they feel they value the love based on
No.
what
And
you
you're
bring to the
dealing with
table?
social
I
media.
don't think that
A lot of men, a lot of men. When I'm saying a lot of men,
no. Let me get
Oh,
it out. You're
why
asking
not?
you're coming at me with all these questions. So let me answer one of them.
what do you think? Well,
One or
we're
two.
going to ask
Oh.
Joy.
Ask Joy, but let me answer my.
Let's
You
put it on.
asking me a
Come
question.
on,
So I'm
Luana,
gonna
come
say
on.
Tell me
it's
something.
not that women look at men and devalue them if they're making more money than them. It's I think what it is with women nowadays, they don't have to settle for less. You know, women.
Well, what
women-
defines-
In the past, that's what they
because
did?
women in the past, I felt
They
like
settled for less?
I felt like women were with men that they were not really attracted to for sometimes financial reasons, or they just didn't want to be alone. Nowadays, women are saying comfortably that they can live by themselves. They don't have to be in a relationship with a man, you know, and then they could pick and choose who they want to be with nowadays. And then it doesn't have anything to do with financially because women nowadays are spoiled themselves. They don't need a man to spoil them. Men back in the day, they have all the power because they made more money. The women depended on them to bring the money home. And so now it's like I don't even think it's equal now because now they're saying women are making more money at an alarming rate.
Yeah,
than
but
men
there's
are.
an awful lot of women out here checking for bags. There's an awful lot of women.
Yeah, but a
checking for
lot
what
of
you-
but
what-
but
no, no,
but
no, no, no,
those
no, no, no,
women
no.
are women who
Listen.
they're checking for
Yeah,
bags.
they
There
checking
are
for
women
what you
out
got.
here.
What can you bring?
Yeah,
What
that
can you
is
bring to
true.
So
That is
yeah,
true.
she's capable
That's
of being
true,
independent.
too.
Does she
So
want a
I
relationship or does she
can't
want a
love you
bag?
unless you got enough money for me.
That
Yeah,
is
which
true.
one is it?
Is that love?
I mean,
So,
it's
is
both.
that love?
Well, Joy, isn't it both? Isn't it both?
Is that
okay,
love?
Joy,
No,
what
no,
do
no,
you
no.
mean?
Yeah.
It all depends on the woman, right?
So what do you
I'm
think?
gonna.
Joy?
Well, one thing is just taking out the ways of the world. Just
Okay.
looking at it from us being animals, women are gonna naturally look for somebody who can be a provider.
That's
Just
called a
from
nester.
that's
That's
from
called a
from
nester, right?
from being
That's called a
us
nester.
being an animal.
That's biological. Nesting is
Yes.
biological.
Right.
You're
So-
looking for somebody to help provide. Right.
Bare bones, I feel like that choosing of looking at it stems from there. Now, when you look at it with us being like humans and living
Right.
in this human experience, every woman's going to look at that differently and how they're choosing it. And yes, obviously, with the pop-up of all these dating websites and social media, in my experience, what I'm hearing from men say, they're saying that there's so many women on there. No, there's so many men on there, and men are approaching these women that the women on there now have so many options that they're taking like a really long time to get. One of my friends was like, people have taken a long time to like even send him a message and like to try to start a
To
connection.
respond back.
Because there's an alarming rate of like more men on these websites than women. So
It is.
I don't know. I actually am ignorant to this because I've never been online to date ever.
Well, even if on your social
No.
media, they don't slide into your DM and say anything to you. I
Yeah,
know I
but
find
I'm
men
actually-
always
I'm
trying to talk to
That's
me on
par
my
for the
DM.
course when it comes to women.
I ignore them.
That's every day, all day.
I don't.
Yeah.
Well, most women ignore.
Most women
DMs
ignore
come
that.
in.
They deal with that in life in general. When they
that's
go into
just
a
life.
gas
Cat
station,
calls.
cat calls.
Women
you
don't
go to
cat call men.
You go
I
in a
agree.
market, any place. That's just what it is. You live with that all your life, mostly. So
No, I think
them-
it's a
them-
little bit overwhelming now. These men are just
well, social media
But
has
I
opened
do-
that up. That's why we're talking about social media and what men are dealing with when they
Right.
come
I
to
do
joy
wanna address that
from a woman's
question
component.
there a little bit deeper. So looking at it from that aspect, yeah, we're always the female. If you look in the chain, go out and to look in the jungle, like women are always going to choose the strongest mate, right? So we're naturally going to do that just as animals in general.
okay.
I have heard, people have come to me. I haven't heard any like really problems on that being the deciding factor in their confidence, but in their confidence or affecting them completely. I think it's different generationally too. most of my clients in person were much, much older. I'm just starting to help like a little bit younger. What I mean younger, not 20s, like just like 30s, you know,
Mhm.
where these more intimate conversations are coming up around like their lack of confidence of not being able to connect with the woman emotionally and things like that. Now, I will say I have talked to other coaches because I'm in a community of other people like building their coaching business and everything. Now, other coaches, there are other coaches on the flip side who are helping women because there was such a big burst of women going into the workforce and like now earning six figures and yes, taking on the role that people's mates and husbands used to take on. There's a lot of coaches coming out where they're having to help women in the corporate field, teaching them how to embody their feminine again, because these women who are so successful are having to be in their masculine energy
Mhm.
constantly, and it's
Mhm.
dominant, and they're bringing that home with them, where
And
it's
then
now
men
affecting
are
the
unattractive.
polarity.
They don't like that. They don't
Right,
like when
it's
you're.
affecting the polarity of
Some
their
men don't.
relationship.
So a lot of men don't
Depends
like
on the
it.
man's
Depends on
confidence.
the
A lot
man.
of men. A
Depends
lot
on
of
the
Right,
men
man's
don't
but
like it.
confidence.
I'm
Yeah.
just saying
Depends on
this
the
is
man's level of confidence within himself. Yeah.
it does, but nobody wants to come. I'm going to say this from a man's point of view because I help men, and I'm always diving into like researching and watching other people that I follow like content. I know from this in my own experience, because I was a person who was deep in her masculine energy, not just because of where the opportunities that women have gotten now, but also my own holding on to my masculine energy came from my father. I was like, well,
Mhm.
he disappointed me. So
Mhm.
I have to put on this armor because I'm never going to let a man disappoint me like this and let me down ever again. So I need to be self-sufficient and very independent, because I'm never going to be put in a position where I need a man and he tells me no and he can't do it and it breaks my heart.
Mhm.
That was the thinking I had behind it,
I
which
think a lot
caused
of
a
women.
lot of disconnect in
Mhm.
relationship when I would pick a man, because I would pick it out of that mindset and that energy, you know? And it took a lot of inner work and unraveling around my father, not blaming him, et cetera, and trying to like seek my own feminine energy and bring her forth, because it's more of like a receptive energy, it's more attractive energy, it's more of
Mhm.
a very sensual energy, it's more of like to sit back, to be able to sit back and compliment the masculine. I was not about that life. So it not only came from like all these opportunities where women are cropping up in the workforce and being able to like own our piece and make our state in the career path, but also, it could be stemming from other root issues where, she was talking about earlier, all this trauma. It was all my childhood trauma of having to see my mom parent me for a while by herself, of me having this disconnect from my dad for so long, and I was close to him, so I have memories of going everywhere with him when I was 5, and me
Mm.
feeling like I have to put on this armor because I never want to be disappointed by another man again. So I have to like provide for my own self. And
Do you think
I think a
that's,
lot of women are doing
yeah,
that.
right. That's what I was going to
exactly.
say. Is that, yeah,
And I
pervasive
think
throughout?
and I know deep down inside, yes, there's that can help with, I guess, creating the quality of life you're wanting to create, but it also can be such a detriment to you. I'm hearing this from other coaches saying like how women are they're so successful, they're earning six figures, they're checking off all the T's on their checklist as far as like all that's concerned, but they cannot attract a man. And so they're miserable. They're by themselves. Like,
So you think they can't attract a man because the men that they're trying to attract might have their own insecurity of the fact that
yes,
this woman is
yeah,
so successful? Because
yes,
there's a lot of men that are very insecure of women and their success. There's a
yes.
lot of men that can't deal with that.
Exactly. But it has to do with like the energetics too. Like, usually if you're, sometimes these women are attracting like more passive, more more men who are stuck in their, you know, feminine energy, and now they're even more big feeling like emasculated and intimidated. And I'm not saying it's her fault, but she's already stepping into this, trying to connect with this person with a very dominant energy. And so that's where the polarity kind of gets turned around, and it can create a lot of tension in that relationship.
Okay, how do men get in touch with you when is there a website, or if we're looking for a session, how would a man get in contact?
Oh yeah, to answer your question, a lot of people have reached out to me just through Google, just finding me. So
Okay.
One thing you can do, Joi Rychelle is JoiRychelle. You would find me on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. I have a website, but I just took it down to do some remodeling. So it's going to be back up, but it's menswellnesstraining.com. But
and you're located, Joi, you're in New Jersey, but you do a lot of your training across the country.
Yeah, I'm taking on more virtual clients now because I want to have a bigger impact. I want to be able to reach men and not be just confined to like, I can't get to you because you're not in my area, you know? So yeah, I am taking on more virtual clients. So a lot of people have reached out to me just through my social media, and we'll start a conversation, you know? I would also just, you know, tell people to look at the content to see if you like what I'm talking about. You know, I always have like free gifts, like free meditations and stuff, just to get a feeling of what I'm offering and what I'm putting out there. You know, I know with men, it takes a little bit more time for them to like step and walk towards you, which I can understand.
Okay. Well, men, we got to get you guys looking out for Joi, because she's got some great things to offer us. And so we're excited to have had you on. We know time is winding down for us. I know you've got some things you've got to get to out there on the East Coast. And so we're excited. And again, we're
it's a very happy to have conversation. We've got to ask her back because
we got to have you come back, because
I got a lot of
we got to get going on.
You
got a lot more questions. And you've got a lot of answers for us, I'm sure. So everybody, two sides of the same coin. We're thankful to have Joi Rychelle. Okay, so we look forward to talking to you again, and thanks for coming on with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.